What's up? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel as you tune in and check out the content, right? And just I want to talk about Skap and how he's making excuses for the Joker. Now because he has a pattern when the team win, he gives the Joker all the credit. And then when the team lose, he shift all the blame to his teammates, which I don't think is really cool, right? I don't think that's fair to the rest of the players. When I don't know what year it was when the Denver Nuggets won the championship, but they had great defense. The Joker did his thing, and and it worked out for them. They was able to win the championship, and so ever since then, they haven't been able to really get back and win the championship or find that balance, you know. So now he's on there complaining. And like I said, he's trying to set it up for the Joker, whereas though like the Joker looks like the victim, like they don't have enough talent around him. So, but I don't think that you can have it both ways. The Skap thinks that the Joker is the best player in the league right now, right? And I won't even debate that. Don't get me wrong. I think the Joker is I don't believe he's the best player in the league. He might be one of the best, but maybe top five. And that's something that you don't really have to debate because he got one championship, but other than that, he don't have anything else to show for what Skap is how he's trying to elevate his status in the league. And to me, I like it. I like when things work out like that because if you don't win, then you don't get credit for being the best. If you don't have championships, you don't get credit for being the best. He won a championship. He has one. Shea has one. What's the other guy? The new guy. Giannis has a championship. That don't make it shows more like the league has more parity than anything. Like when you have different teams winning it, you know, it don't show dominance like the way that they want to say that this guy is dominant. Now I can see if he was dominant and he was, he would get credit if he was a better defensive player. Like down at the offensive end, he damn near unstoppable at the offensive end, but he's a big liability down the other end. Now, if he was putting forth twice the effort of what he's doing now, then people would give him his credit. But people are not acknowledging him as one of the greatest because he's dominating at one end of the court. And every time you hear ex-basketball players, especially guys who play defense, what was the guy name? What's his name? Tucker. PJ Tucker or something like that. I forgot it. He played with Carmelo Anthony, man, and he said that, like the offensive guy, those guys who score like that have to at least help us help you. You got to at least put forth some effort, block out or get a rebound. If you can't stop somebody, at least block out and get rebounds or help and do whatever you can, right? And so I like to hear defenders like talk like that because they let you know that it's you got to play at both ends. You got to contribute at both ends. Scottie Pippen said the same thing about who else? He said that about LeBron James. He said LeBron James don't show the same effort on defense that he shows on offense, right? And that's what it boils down to. You gotta show that effort at both ends. Whether you slow, if you can't jump, you gotta find ways to be, to help your team out at both ends, not just at the offensive end, and you just live with your weaknesses and your liabilities, man, because you put your team at risk, right? So let me play what Skap had to say about the Joker, man, because I want to push back on. And really, I don't even really have to push back a lot because, like I said, if they don't win, that's like, you can have somebody on the Washington Wizards. I always use them as an example, but you can have somebody on the Washington Wizards, whoever the top scorer on the Washington Wizards. You like, oh, this guy's dominant. He's dumb. Nobody would ever pay you any attention. Why? Because the Wizards are not winning. So he's not you're not relevant unless your team is you're elevating your team, basically, right? And so it's different levels to it. He have a championship, but he's not, he's not like somebody who you can put in the same boat with like Tim Duncan or any of the guys who was part of a dynasty. You can't put him up there with those guys.
Well, the Denver Nuggets were in action tonight, and they were taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves, a very important head-to-head matchup as these two entered the night tied for the 4 seed in the Western Conference of the NBA playoffs race at this point. So this was, in essence, a battle for the 4 seed in a matchup where they will likely take on each other come playoff time, and this was for allegedly, I guess you would anticipate, the home court advantage in that first round playoff matchup. The Denver Nuggets were 2.5-point favorites. They were playing at home, and ho-hum, I guess this would be another one of those games that Nikola Jokic is to blame for. I guess this would be another game where Nikola Jokic choked this one away, because of course it isn't. Let me take you all through it. Those of you who are whining, pontificating, and shouting from the mountaintops about how Nikola Jokic is overrated, how Nikola Jokic is to blame for the Denver Nuggets' plight as of late, and how potentially maybe even race is playing a factor in the defense of Nikola Jokic. Let's just look at this game in particular as a microcosm, shall we? Well, the Denver Nuggets were quick out of the gate behind, yes, Nikola Jokic. The Denver Nuggets were dominating, dare I say, in the first quarter. At the end of the first quarter, where Nikola Jokic played all 12 minutes, the Denver Nuggets were up 31-22 at the end of the first. But, well, eventually Nikola Jokic does have to go to the bench. And look, this game was never the same after that. After Nikola Jokic went to the bench, they could never, the Denver Nuggets, that is, could never regain control.
All right, so he said the Joker played the first 12 minutes of the game, right? So that could have been the strategy of the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? That could have been their strategy. Wear him out. Let him, they used to do the same thing with Michael Jordan. They allow Michael go and get his. And if you look at the Joker was putting some moves on him, the Joker, he was unstoppable. But the Joker probably ran out of gas. And this, you running out of gas when you're only performing at one end of the court. So, like I said, let him get his. They always talk about his stats, and I think Skap is going to bring up his stats and stuff like that. But he never talk about like block shots or what he did at the defense. Very rarely do they talk about what he did at the defensive end, right? It's all about what the Joker did offensively. And yeah, you can no denying that the Joker was giving them work down there. But I don't even think that any team that faces the Denver Nuggets in the playoffs, their strategy is going to be to stop the Joker. Don't even, they don't double team him too often. They just let him do his thing, stop everybody else, and go down at the other end, and this is how you beat them.
Because when Jokic went to the bench for the first roughly 6 minutes of the second quarter, the Minnesota Timberwolves hit the Denver Nuggets.
Wait a minute. He said he went to the bench for 6 minutes. Like who? 6 minutes? Well, the game is 48. And he missed half of that second quarter. That means he was winded. Here we are, like about 75, almost 75% of the way through the season, and this guy is winded. That's yeah. So you're not going to get any effort from him on the defensive end when he come back in the game. He just going to try to outscore everybody. So yeah, in the playoffs, I think if they face this team in the playoffs, this team gonna beat them.
With a 23-7 run in those 6 minutes to start the second quarter. So let me just kind of lower my voice a little bit. Let me talk slower. For those of you who are too slow to follow what I'm saying, the Denver Nuggets were up 9 at the end of the first quarter after Jokic played all 12 minutes. He went to the bench for 6 minutes to start the second, and the Minnesota Timberwolves outscored the Denver Nuggets in those 6 minutes 23-7. So by the time Nikola Jokic got back into the game, the score was 45-38 Minnesota. So 31-22 when Jokic goes out of the game, 45-38 Minnesota when Jokic gets back into the game.
So that means that they let this guy tire himself out. He played the whole first quarter, half of the second quarter. You know, he couldn't play. He had to rest 6 minutes. He went all out. If you're the Minnesota Timberwolves and you see this guy need that much rest after playing the first quarter, man, yeah, I don't know if they can't really win another championship with the Joker playing like this. Don't get me wrong. When he in there, he all buckets. You cannot, he a mismatch for everybody. But he refused to help you out at the defensive end. So you can't, you want to give him credit when you could look at that both ways. He is very dominant on the offensive end. You got to give him that. But when it comes to playing defense, or the fact that he gets tired and you got to rest him for 6 straight minutes, yeah, it is what it is. And so anybody try to make the argument like the Joker is one of the greatest basketball players, or Joker is a very good basketball player. Not one of the greatest, though. Not one of the greatest. So that's my take on it. Make sure to like, subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to leave a comment. And with that being said, man, I'm going to check y'all out in the next video. Peace.